So how did Bruno cost me $1,500? Well, actually, it's more than $1,500, but bare minimum $1,500. So to give a little backstory, when we first got Bruno, he was this adorable little boy that just stole our hearts. And probably 6 months after getting him, he just started getting sick, right? Was constantly going to the bathroom a lot, pissing at his ass, very lethargic, the whole 9 yards. And I spent a lot of money taking him to the vet, different animal hospitals, like thinking something was really fucked up with him. Different tests, the whole 9 yards. And long story short, he ended up having a virus that made him sick. And what's fucked up is it took him a year to figure that shit out. Cured it up. But for the longest part, I thought he might have had an allergy, right? Because I noticed things triggered when we gave him different proteins. After his illness got cleared up, he was able to eat everything. And I transitioned them to a completely raw diet. So it's raw, any raw protein, whether it's duck, chicken, beef, eggs. They love quail eggs. Love quail eggs. And yes, for the people that are nervous out there, they can eat raw chicken. They can even have the bones. That's a fucking myth. That they can't have the bones. They just can't be cooked. So when you cook chicken bones, it changes the density of the bone, right? It changes basically what happens to the bone. They become sharp and kind of like hypodermic needles. But raw chicken bone is very good for them, and it crumbles like granola bar. And it's very good for their teeth. Anyway, I digress. So, I don't know, maybe a month ago? No, 3 weeks ago, in that area, he out of nowhere started getting really lethargic. And he's taking a shit right now. So I'm going to pause the video. All right, I'm back. He's back, and he's done. So yeah, he started getting a little lethargic, and I knew something was screwed up because when he has issues, his stomach makes these crazy gurgles, and they're chasing each other. And he won't eat. And it won't settle down for at least, 5 to 8 hours. And then he'll get his appetite back and eat like a horse. And then the throwing up triggered and, anything that you can associate with being sick. So where the cost came into effect was all the vet bills. First round to the animal hospital. Now, interesting little backstory. For whatever reason, during this COVID bullshit, there was like a huge fucking backlog for the vets. So I couldn't get him into his vet for 3 weeks, which is fucking unheard of. Like, are people so bored that they're just sitting at the fucking house taking their animals to the vets for no reason? Like, I've been to the vet quite a few times, and there's never been a wait for 3 weeks to get into the vet. Anyway, I don't get it. So I had to take him to an animal hospital because I had suspicions that maybe he had caught the previous thing he had before. And that's nothing to fuck with because it's highly contagious and will hammer their kidneys and liver and shit like that. So I wanted to get him tested. So they have like this quick snap test, and then they have lab testing. Oh, they see birds. So that one, which I will show you guys, I think that one cost me over $800. I forget the exact figure. Now, they recommended x-rays on that one. Now, the x-rays I opted out because under my suspicions, I knew x-rays would have been a complete waste of time and money because there's no way an x-ray is going to determine a viral or bacterial infection. just to be visited at the ear alone. I think it was like 125, 175 just to show up at the door. So really expensive. And yes, I have pet insurance and it does reimburse a good chunk. However, you still got to front that shit up front. Man, you guys are out of control today. Anyway, so they gave meds, and the meds I wasn't a fan of because he's had before, and they don't do shit for him, right? And especially if I was right with my suspicion, they wouldn't fucking work, right? But I said, all right, I'll give him to him anyway, just to cover the bases. And like I suspected, the shit didn't work. So that happened for 3 weeks, and then I still kept his previous vet appointment, and then came up to that. They retested him again, and then as a precaution, they gave him a round of the previous meds that cleared up his previous problem. Now that trip, which I'll show you, was to the sum of over $600. Well over $600. Now, they originally were recommending x-rays, and then the vet came back and said they're not going to do x-rays because it would be a good waste of time and money, which is one of the reasons why I go to the vet that I go to. A, it's one of the best in the area. Pay premium for that. But they do try not to waste your money and time, which is good. So he was on his meds and so forth. And long story short, not to make this, as I could talk about this for hours. And for whatever reason, there's a shortage of chicken in this area. I don't fucking get it, but it is what it is. So I switched him over to some raw beef. Now, like I said earlier, I suspected that he might have had a beef allergy, but I did a lot of research, and that's part of the reason why I switched him to raw. And what I found out is most of the time with kibble and canned foods and shit like that, it's not necessarily the protein that they're allergic to. It can be. It doesn't necessarily mean it will be. But they're finding, from what I read, that a lot of the allergies could be triggered from the preservatives for those proteins. And then funny enough, back then, when I stopped giving him beef kibble and put him on raw beef, he had no reactions, no issues, and he was perfectly fine. So this round we did some beef, since chicken was becoming harder to come by when they were doing the limitations on it. And I have 2 German Shepherds to feed, so you can imagine that I need to buy quite a bit. I kind of remembered that, and then when I had him on his boiled chicken and rice diet, he started clearing up, and then back to the normal food, and then he started having issues again. Needless to say, he is perfectly fine now. He's unloaded. And he's been good for at least a week or 2. I forget how long, but he's been good, right? Eating like a horse, and acting like he's 5 months old. You would never know that he was sick. And he hasn't touched a lick of beef. So, moral of the story is he ended up costing me a good chunk of change because he was having huge allergic reactions out of nowhere for the beef. And that is how Bruno cost me over $1,500. Where is he? Well, we're back at the house. These guys had their fun at the park. Had a little run, had a little walk, had their breakfast. Now it might be time to relax a little bit. Who knows, maybe we'll go back to the park. Maybe we'll let them play with the hose. But it's not a video without little Miss Sadie on the back of the couch chilling. So, until next week, this is Ed, Bruno, and Sadie signing off.